Hello, my name is Harper LaFond, and today I will be analyzing and reviewing Ohio's science curriculum for first grade. I'll be looking at the foundations, organization, content, and assessment associated with the curriculum, and then at the end of this presentation, I will provide my own critique of the curriculum based on my personal opinions and the research I've done on the curriculum. So without further ado, let's jump right in and take a look at Ohio's science curriculum. As with any curriculum, the foundations are super important, and this curriculum is no exception. So let's take a look at what makes Ohio's science curriculum what it is. So, curriculum development for Ohio's science curriculum was and still is a group effort. Teachers, curriculum developers, stakeholders, experts, and others have come together to really create this cohesive curriculum. Ohio is actually in a period of transition right now, as the Ohio Learning Standards for Science were recently revised in 2018, and they will be fully implemented by the 2020-2021 school year. And the website for Ohio's science curriculum talks about this, and they detail why they decided to revise these standards. So just as the curriculum development is a group effort, so are the revisions of the curriculum. The Ohio Department of Education sent out some surveys to the public to kind of get their opinions on what they thought should be included in the curriculum. And they also drew from other organizations to help them revise this curriculum. So one of the important documents which goes along with the science curriculum is called Each Child, Our Future. And this document really focuses on the vision and the goals that Ohio has for all of its students across all subject areas. It was founded on three main principles: equity, partnerships, and quality. And these three principles can be found in more detail on page 8 of the document. So, as we learned from the textbook and as Armstrong explains, there are some issues with the concept of equity because sometimes when you emphasize equity over other things, it can kind of get in the way of achievement. So there are definitely pros and cons to the concept of equity, and of course it is important, but it's just interesting to note that the Ohio Department of Education really emphasizes the importance of equity among its students. And just to mention that Armstrong's discussion of equity is found on pages 99 and 100. So, as I mentioned before, there is a clearly stated vision and there are clearly stated goals within the Each Child, Our Future document. The vision statement says, "In Ohio, each child is challenged to discover and learn, prepared to pursue a fulfilling post-high school path, and empowered to become a resilient lifelong learner who contributes to society." And this is on page 9 of the document. So again, this really applies to any subject area, but I think that is applicable to the science curriculum in the fact that with this new science curriculum, students aren't just focusing on knowing things. They're learning skills. They're learning how to apply science to the real world, which is so important in our 21st century era where students will be expected to be able to apply science and use science in their day-to-day lives and in their careers. And finally, there are overarching goals stated within this document that, detail what the Ohio Department of Education wants all of its students to achieve, and more on this can be found within the Each Child, Our Future document. So let's move on to organization. There are 6 student-centered goals for science in Ohio's Learning Standards document, and these goals really talk about how students should not only know what they are learning, but they should be able to apply it. They should be able to use science, and they should be able to take that knowledge and use it in the real world. There are also several guiding principles, which I will talk about later in this presentation, which help to narrow the focus and also at the same time to broaden the focus of the science curriculum and make it, again, applicable to the real world. So how the curriculum and more specifically, the standards are broken up into three main sections. There's a section on the nature of science, which details kind of some of the skills that students should be able to demonstrate within the different grade levels, and it's broken up not by each particular grade level, but for example, first grade is encompassed in the K through 2 nature of science section. Ohio's cognitive demands for science also focus on those skills that students need to have in order to process what they are learning and to be able to apply it. And finally, Ohio's learning standards for science focus on what students need to know. What's the content? What do they have to understand about specific topics and concepts? So this curriculum is an academic subject design in the sense that is more traditional because it does focus highly on the subject and science as a subject. So I want to talk about a few design principles that were outlined in Chapter 8 of the Armstrong textbook. Again, there are so many of them. I'm only going to focus on a few: sequence and continuity. So in terms of sequence, this curriculum shows a part-to-whole sequence. So what this means is that students, for example, may learn something in first grade, and it may be, very simplified. But then once they, move up the ladder, they move to the next grade level, it's going to build upon that elementary learning that they have of the topic or concept. And so in this way, it's very logical, very sequential. In terms of continuity, I believe that there's a strong continuity within this curriculum. The website even mentions how they have a goal to have a strong vertical alignment within the curriculum. And what this means is that, again, from grade level to grade level, you're not going to see a lot of discrepancies. You're going to sometimes even see similar concepts and topics, but they're going to build upon each other, and it's going to follow a logical progression upwards. So now that we've talked about organization, let's focus on content. So I'm going to take a look at specifically the learning standards first, and here I have a picture of some of the themes and strands and content statements, which I will explain, and I'm going to blow this picture up by showing you the actual website. So the grade band theme refers to kind of the theme that surrounds first grade, and just as a side note, I am going to be narrowing my focus more specifically to first grade. I know that I had previously kind of talked generally, but now I'm going to focus in on first grade. So we have the grade band theme, then we have strands, and then we have specific content statements. So let me show you what all these words actually mean. So if we go up here, we have right here the grade band theme, which for first grade is observations of the environment, and this is page 33. So then for the strands, we have earth and space science, physical science, and life science, which below them all have topics, and then even below that, we have content statements. So for example, the first content statement on the left says the sun is the principal source of energy. So at the end of first grade, students are going to be expected to know that the sun is the principal source of energy, and they are going to have learning experiences within the classroom that are going to teach them this principle. So within the curriculum, there is a great focus on 21st century concepts. As I mentioned before, I talked about how there were several guiding principles for the science curriculum, and this is one of them, 21st century concepts. So as such, this also stresses syntactic knowledge among students. There are several suggestions for hands-on learning experiences, applications to real life, among other things. So I wanted to show you real quickly, down here, we have several different suggestions for how students could, learn the different content statements that were up here. So like, for example, the sun is the principal source of energy. If we go down here, They might have to design a structure that will warm soil, water, or air. And so this is really great because it provides teachers with a lot of different ideas for how they can teach students the content and the concepts they need to know. And a lot of these activities are hands-on and collaborative in nature, which is really, really awesome. So yeah, if you go back to the website for Ohio Science Curriculum, they also talk about different instructional strategies and instructional technology. Well, not so much talk about, but they provide links to different websites and such which detail instructional strategies and instructional technology. And another point I wanted to mention is that the Ohio Department of Education advocates for using the Next Generation Science Standards in conjunction with Ohio's Learning Standards for Science. Okay. So let's move on to assessment. So state testing is not required in first grade. Testing is, in terms of science, is only required for grades 5, 8, and for students who are studying biology. So there are no statewide testing requirements, again, for students in first grade for science. And in all honesty, not a ton is mentioned in the way of assessment. The website states that teachers should use formative and summative assessments, but they kind of leave it at that. So it appears as though assessment is left up to the teachers. And therefore, I would argue that mainly criterion referenced assessments are used for first graders, again, because there is no statewide testing for these students, and because teachers are, going to be judging the students based on what they have to know, and they're not going to be comparing them so much peer-to-peer as would a statewide test. One of the cool things about the science curriculum is that on the website they provide 2 resources for teachers. One, a science quality review rubric, which helps teachers take a look at the curriculum and see the quality of it. And the other is a science resource filter. So again, this is another kind of guide to help teachers select resources that are going to be high quality and that they're going to serve a purpose for teaching their students science. So I thought that this was really cool because, as we know, it's important not only to assess our students, but to assess ourselves as teachers and to focus on how we can improve the curriculum and how we can improve our teaching. And so I thought that these were 2 great resources that were included on the website. And again, the website has a section for instructional strategies and instructional technology that teachers can use to get ideas. So finally, the last section focuses on my critique of the Ohio science curriculum for first grade. So overall, the curriculum is very coherent, it's well organized, easy to follow, and I personally think that it is an exemplary curriculum. Excuse me. It draws on Bloom's taxonomy and Vygotsky's theories quite a bit. It draws on Bloom's taxonomy because it really requires students to move beyond that base knowledge level, and it requires them to move up the hierarchy and create and to explore and to do things that will actually help them to learn the material instead of just memorize it. And it also draws from Vygotsky's theories in the way that students are constructing their knowledge in their environment. They are learning from their peers, they are collaborating, they are engaging in hands-on learning experiences, they are moving to the next zone of proximal development, within their grade and from grade to grade. And so these are 2 important things that the curriculum really draws on. There is adequate scope, sequence, and spiral. So the scope, in my opinion, is deeper rather than wider. I appreciate the fact that there are minimal content statements within each grade level because it allows the teacher to go deeper within each of the topics or concepts. And so I think that this is actually a good thing. The sequence of the material is logical and appropriate. And again, I talked about how it was a part-to-whole sequencing. And finally, there's adequate spiral. The content builds, and as I mentioned before, there's vertical alignment within the curriculum. There is overlap and repetition among, different concepts and topics within the curriculum, but something new is always added, promoting deeper knowledge within the curriculum. So if a student learns something in first grade, they are not going to learn in the exact same way in second grade. They may focus on a similar topic or concept, but they're either going to go in deeper they're either going to go deeper into the topic, or something is going to be added to expand upon their knowledge and their skills within that topic. There are many learning activities and experiences that are meaningful within this curriculum, and as I mentioned before, there are numerous ideas for collaborative learning experiences within the Learning Standards document, and a lot of times, actually, it seems as though the learning experiences and activities and the decisions surrounding these are left up to the teacher, allowing for flexibility, which is also a good thing too. I believe that there could be more information on assessment within this curriculum because I kind of struggled to find, you know, some examples of formative and summative assessment within this curriculum. So I think that, it would be beneficial to have a greater focus, on assessment because it is such an important part of the curriculum. This curriculum for science allows for thinking and problem solving, and I definitely believe that the content is developmentally appropriate, having looked at the first grade content statements and seen what students learn from kindergarten to first grade to second grade and beyond. So, in conclusion, Ohio Science curriculum is outstanding. It's well developed, detailed, and organized. It really is a curriculum for the 21st century. And again, my only critique is that there needs to be more focus on assessment and the direct links to the content in terms of assessment. But all in all, it's really an exemplary curriculum. And one of the things that I really learned from this and from doing research on the curriculum is that there are many resources for teachers out there, and specifically on Ohio's, the Department of Ohio's website, that can really help teachers to make the curriculum accessible for all students. And there are many ideas out there that teachers can use and benefit from. So we're not alone. There are plenty of resources, and you just have to know how to access them. So again, I think that this is an exemplary curriculum, and that if I was teaching in Ohio, I would feel very comfortable and excited to use it with my students. So here are my references, and thank you so much for listening.